I believe it would be very late night for Mary right now. So we'll just give it some few minutes and wait for her.
Yeah, it's like 5:30 in the morning for her.
Okay. I thought it would be around 2 a.m. or something.
No, but there seems to be some confusion around the link. So that could be where her.
Okay. We'll just wait for her a few more minutes. I'm sure she'll be joining soon.
Yeah, I was in Google land too.
Yeah. That's where I thought too. And then when I checked a few moments ago, I saw the announcement come from the event and I'm like, oh, it seems like I might be in the wrong place. So Setulu, are you going to introduce the panel itself? I mean, are you going to introduce the topic and then turn it over to me?
First of all, I will do some introductions like I've already here on the screen. So just a quick introduction about the event and the hosting organization. After that, I will just announce that we have announced our panelists and then hand it over to you.
Okay. There
so Mary
she is.
Also here. Yes. Hello, Mary. Just connecting to the audio. Okay. Hi, Mary. I hope you can hear us.
Yes. Can you see me?
All right, great. Yes, we can see you.
Yay. Good morning.
No, well, I don't see her.
Yeah, black screen. So you might might just have to lift up your laptop or
Okay, I'm looking straight at it. That's okay.
Change a camera.
Yep.
There you go. Oh, you were there.
Nope.
Nope.
I was just on. Okay, we'll figure it out. I don't know why that is. I was just on there. Okay.
Maybe you can try closing the video once and switching that on again.
Say that again.
Maybe you can try switching off your camera once and switch it on again one more time.
Cool.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to do a little test. And video settings. All right, I'm going to go out and come back in. I'll be right back.
You were logged into the Google Meets one. You may want to log out of that one.
Oh, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, because your Google might be using your camera.
That is exactly it, my friend. So hold on, I'm gonna get out there.
Okay.
I did my learning deed today.
Yes, I love that.
Got it out of the way early, did you?
All right. So once since we have all settled in, I suppose we can start the session. All right. So this will be a panel discussion with all our panelists.
I lost her. Did you guys lose her?
Yes.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Having some problems here.
Okay, you're back.
Yes. So I was saying, thank you everyone for being here. We will be having a panel discussion today with an amazing panelist. Just before we start, here is a quick introduction about the hosting organization. So we are We are an independent, vendor-neutral international credentialing and certification organization known as Global Skill Development Council. We are proud to be accredited by ANSI and ABICB, that is an accredited member, and we have licensed 50 plus professionals worldwide. Our exams are designed and curated by our advisors and subject matter experts who are from prestigious universities like Yale, MIT, Stanford, and so on. We have around 60 plus portfolios, which are the details of which are all available on our website. So if you have a look, we'll leave the link on the chat box. And you can also connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We are proud to be partnered with 50 plus global training partners. They come from various regions from Africa, America, Latin, Middle East, and so on, and so proud to be a part of them. A special thanks to the partners who supported us for this event, going out of the way and sharing about the event to their network. Thank you, and big appreciation to you all. An appreciation to our official media partner as well. Thank you for supporting us in this event. And also not forgetting our individual volunteers who have supported us throughout the days that we have marketed this event. Thank you so much to all. A quick intro about the Certified Chief Learning Officer and the L&D certification by GSBC.
So the Learning and Development Professional Certificate and the CLO certificates are designed by our advisors.
Straightly moving forward to our panelists here. We will be the session will be moderated by our very own Shannon Tipton, and we have our panelists in our panelists Mary Ann Paulson, Dr. Jerry Zanstra, and Mr. Joe Elvento. We are so glad that we could have this amazing panelists on our as our speakers today, and so thankful that you could all make time for this. So yeah, I won't take more time here. So Shannon, you can take away the session. You can go ahead.
Thank you for that, and welcome everyone. We are super excited to be here with you, depending on where you are in the world. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. And it's a great way to conclude our summit, talking to these fabulous people about the future of work and where we see the future of work going. And it's easy to say the future of work in a very holistic way. However, what does that mean? What does that mean to CLOs? What does it mean to organizations? And what does it mean to the people within those organizations? And this is the conversation that we are going to have today. So I would love to introduce our panel. And today we have Mary Ann Paulson, who is the Chief Learning Officer for Paulson Positive Consulting. And she has been involved in learning and development for over 20 years, specifically around the sales and solar markets, et cetera. And I'm just going to flip this over to Mary Ann for just a second and let her fill in the gaps as far as what brings her to the table today.
That's great. Good morning. Can you hear me okay, Shannon?
Yes.
Okay. We have a little bit of a delay, so I will take that into consideration. Good morning from lovely Southern California. It's 5:36 a.m., so it's still dark, but I'm thrilled to see everybody today and love to see and chat where everybody is from around the world. Why I'm here, Shannon, is to challenge us as learning and development professionals to go full force with gusto towards the future of work. when I started back in the dark ages, and I swear I'm not that old, when I started in training, learning, and development, I was, again, just a trainer. But now we are all transformers. And with that in mind, it is important for us to go, like Star Trek, go where no one has ever gone before. And we have to be the leaders, and we have to step into the arena where it may be uncomfortable, but our companies expect us to have the latest and greatest and take those brave steps. So I'm here to help give some strategies and tips and tricks on how to do that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I love with the word that you used, with gusto, right? And I think that's what's required right now, is that we go where no person has ever gone before, if we're going to quote Star Trek, and really grab a hold of that. I love that. So thank you. And next up on our panel, we have Jerry Zanstra. I promise I practiced that.
I do every day.
And Jerry is the co-founder and chief strategy officer at MindSpring, a global leader in creating learning experiences for some of the largest organizations in the world. So thank you, Jerry, for joining us. And I'll turn it over to you as well to help us fill in the gaps as to why this topic is important to you, and give us some further detail about your background and where you might be sitting right now.
Sure. Well, thank you, Shannon. Where I'm sitting right now is Michigan, which is in the Midwest. Yeah, thanks a lot, Marianne. It is. It was 2 below last night, and I'm looking out at quite a bit of snow. So this is a fascinating conversation to me, because I really can't think of a period in my professional life where there have been more shifts and changes. Technology is bringing massive changes to how we work and how we learn. COVID has just rewritten all of the rules. Working from home is a massive change. Plus, manufacturing, healthcare, retail, all those things are getting more and more complex. And the complexity sometimes comes from the tech, sometimes it comes from just changing circumstances. But these kinds of conversations done with other people who are passionate and experienced in learning are just phenomenal opportunities for us to think together. And right now, I think that's very much what we need.
I agree. And thank you for that. It is about collaboration, isn't it? It's how do we get there from here? And the only way to get there from here is to do it together, and to have all of the brains in the room to figure out what the future may hold for us when we don't know what the future holds for us, right? So that's always a tricky conversation.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yep. So thank you for that. And lastly, we have Joe Ilvento, and Joe is the Chief Learning Officer and Director of Talent Development for Commvault, and you've appeared on the cover of Chief Learning Officer. So I think do we have a star amongst us?
So thank you. And again, pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I think, so been in the learning space for 30 years, been in the talent space. I think we all maybe started similar to you, Marianne and Shannon, where we kind of started in the training side, then evolved into talent. I think that the learning and talent piece kind of go hand in hand. I think I agree with everyone. I think it's interesting times. We're at a flex point within our learning industry where artificial intelligence, some of these AI tools that we're seeing are really going to help us. I want to say almost we're kind of in the old school of paper-based competencies and skill profiles and paper-based development plans. And now all of that's changing. There's some new technology that's coming out that's really going to automate and lift us out of that world of kind of using charts and books and documents to kind of craft a profile, but really leverage it into something that's almost dynamic and automated and real time and really learner based and learner focused. So great topic. When I was asked to speak at this one, I'm actually working on a project called Skills for the Future. So it wasn't a hard jump to move from where the work I'm doing right now to this opportunity here. So looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. And I think unless you've been living under a rock, the conversation of skills has been floating around for at least the last year or so, you know, as evidenced by reports by McKinsey, by the World Economic Forum. So there's been a lot of information going around. And real quick, I'll introduce myself. My name is Shannon Tipton, and I am the owner founder of Learning Rebels. And I have also been around this block a time or two, or 30, if we're going to put it like that, and have held a variety of learning leadership positions within organizations. Now, I think the interesting space where we come from now is a place of uncertainty, because you can almost cut the L&D history right at the period of COVID, where we all had to make significant adjustments to how we work, right? Based on that particular point in time, where we had to take an internal look at what we do, how we do it, how we're going to provide for the business, and how we're going to provide for people. So my first question to you is, how can, when we think about the future of work, what is L&D or talent's responsibility now to further keep that momentum going and stay aligned with the business? And I'll start with you, Mary.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, Shannon, it all comes down to being, again, the leader. You know, L&D is not just labor and delivery, which we do, but it comes back to actually not necessarily just to learning, but to leadership. And what I mean by that is that we have to be the catalysts within our companies and firms to be able to challenge the status quo of making sure that we're tackling the needs for our new learners, while keeping in mind the diverse groups that we have to train. And so we have to not necessarily jump 100% into an AI or use solely Chat GPT or something like that. We've got to make sure that we have our feet firmly on the ground, but also with the future. And we've got to challenge our CEOs. We've got to challenge, again, work with our HR partners to really have them be part of the process of this transition. Because just like Joe and Jerry said, this is an uncertain time, but guess what? We are the catalysts to make that change happen. And so we have to keep on top of the technology. We've got to recommend things that they've never thought about or tried before. And that's where we have to become, and our teams have to become the subject matter experts as best we can to go ahead and face that new future.
Yes, totally. And with you, Joe, what do you see? So bouncing off of Marianne's comments about us being the catalyst, and helping the businesses to move forward, because, I think that we would all agree that talent/learning and development, even though that might be in our job roles and job titles, this is not a process we own, right? It's a shared ownership. Mm-hmm. And so now what is your view then about how we can be more of that catalyst as we move forward?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that term consultant, kind of strategic orchestrator, knowledge expert, all come into play as hats that we have to wear as chief learning officers or people in the learning space. The C-suite is looking for us to point them in the right direction. I will say that because that merge of talent and learning and succession planning and career pathing is all coming together. And just like learning and the ability to Google anything, that ability of command and control of learning that once had is kind of going away. People kind of go out, get what they need. They have all kinds of avenues to go with. So if we're going to bring a more systemic approach or a more strategic approach in-house to an organization, we want to make sure that it's flexible enough to empower our HR business partners, our business leaders, our C-suite leaders, our learning and development folks, and all those that support us. But at the same time, empower the learner. So we have to give that flexibility. It has to be a balance. I know when I started our Skills for the Future project, I'm like, okay, I think I have a solution. And then you do a little bit more homework. And because in these last couple of years with some of the new technologies that are coming out there, you don't want to jump into something too quick, because any system you put in play, you know it's a 1 or 2 or 3 year commitment. And you don't want the technology to kind of literally leapfrog around you. So the where I started is very different than where I am today. And I think that's an opportunity for all of us to work with.
I totally agree with that. And Jerry, what is your view? So when we take Joe's comment of, where we're at today is not where we started, even as little as 3 years ago, much less 5 years ago. What's your view on that?
Well, I think you had mentioned COVID in your opening comments. One of the things that COVID did is it significantly raised the profile of learning professionals, where the learning profession was sometimes thought to be sort of off to the side. It might be a necessary spend, but it wasn't seen as a core driver of business. COVID changed every bit of that. Suddenly upskilling, reskilling, figuring out working from home, all of those things. And the wonderful thing is that means more resources. So I've seen statistics from learning budgets increasing between 25 and 50% in the last 2 years. Wonderful. So we have more resources, we have more technology, excuse me. But there are a couple of challenges that come with that. One of the challenges is more money, more problems, right?
Right.
You have additional funding, but you also have additional accountability. And so how are you able to demonstrate the ROI? How are you able to actually prove out the value of learning? It might be 5 years ago, you weren't asked to do that nearly as much, but when, especially in large corporations, the ones that we work with, as budgets increase, you get more eyeballs. The light gets brighter, and the light is shined on you, and you have to be able to answer those questions. To Joe's point on technology, and I like where you're going there, Joe. When I think of MindSpring, when I think of our company, what we do is a combination of things. It's incredible, wonderful technology. It's creativity, but it's learning science too. And one of the things that happens sometimes, and Joe is alluding to it, is that the technology sort of comes along and gobbles up the learning science, and we forget there are core, basic, bedrock principles on which learning needs to be built. The understanding of the human person, how we think, how we emote, how we behave, how we work, how we're able, our cognition, sociology, psychology, and we have to, if we lose that core of learning science, then, and despite the technology, you might have the most flashy, interesting thing possible, but you've actually lost the ability to move the needle. And so these are three things we sort of need to hold in tension. I think learning science is one of them. Wonderful creativity, and Joe and Marianne, you're seeing this too, right? I mean, what Joe is describing is that we're being freed up. The technology is freeing us up to be creative. It's not so tedious. It's we can go into these wonderful spaces and put brain power to wonderful creative things. So if you can take learning science, creativity, and then all sorts of technology from AI to AR to XR to VR. There's all sorts of wonderful ways to go there. So this is an exciting time. Some of us might wish we were 30 years younger.
Yes, but no. I think if I were 30 years younger,
you wouldn't give it up, huh?
No, if I were 30 years younger, but know what I know now.
Yeah.
Then yes. because
Yeah.
and that's a great segue, isn't it? So if we think about years prior, and maybe, for some of our audience, 30 years, they're like, I don't know about that. But for some of our more tenured, people who might be on the call with us today, it is interesting, isn't it? Because there was a slow migration, if you will. And as much as I love this industry, we all have to admit that somewhat we are proof of lagging indicators. So it's as I was having a conversation with some other talent development people just the other day, it was, how is it that QR codes have been around for decades, yet we're only using them now? Okay. And so when you talk about creativity, innovation, curiosity, those are key foundational pillars to everything that we do. One would think that would be, our superpowers, yet we're still just breaking into this. So what are some of the barriers that you think might be in front of us right now that we need to use those superpowers to get past? Especially when it comes to talking to the business, because sometimes, it's easy for us. My business is all about, using a lot of these technologies in supporting my clients. However, you still may have some clients out there that are, give me the PowerPoint, please.
Okay. And we do.
All right. And
we
so now,
absolutely do.
How do we get over that? How do we help?
Yeah. There's some. I don't mean to take up too much time, but part of this is the technology. Many of us don't. Back to ROI. Many of us don't have accounting and finance backgrounds, so we don't really know how to do that. And many of us don't have technology backgrounds. But the things are transitioning. They're getting easier to use. So I still think we're very much in the early adopter stage of things like AI, because really it just became practical, what Joe and Mary Ann, in about the last 6 months, right? The shifts in the last 6 months are incredible, but it's getting easier and easier and easier to do. We have we do a lot of XR work. It used to be that you needed to hire Unity coders. It was crazy expensive to do, and those coders are very expensive people. It takes a long time to develop, and it was like, and I've used this analogy in many places, it was like trying to build a website early on. And if you knew how to code, you could build a website. And suddenly a bunch of software came out that it wasn't necessary to code anymore. Now your website didn't rely on your technical skills, it relied on your creativity. And I think that's where we are today. Some of these technologies are becoming easier and easier to use. The barriers might be fear or inexperience, but as they get easier to use, our willingness to play with them and learn them, or assign people on our teams to learn them, is really going up. I think we'll see an explosion of that in the next 3 to 5 years.
And Shannon and Jerry, if I could pick up on that, because you talked about the business case earlier. And one of the things I do see coming out with some of these newer tools is you don't have to have the MBA. They are actually baking business case and metrics and ROI into the tools. If you think about it, what we're trying to do is, from an L&D perspective, when you partner with talent, when you partner with your CHRO, or the C-suite, right? You're looking in some cases to attract talent, in some cases to retain talent, in some cases to develop talent or upskill talent or reskill talent, and to develop that talent as we go into that place. And so the tools can kind of meet people where they are, depending. So whether you're bringing people in and onboarding them and getting them up to speed faster, you can show metrics on that. The tools will help you show metrics on that, you up to speed, or be able to identify those gaps much more effectively and quickly, and say, here are the skills you need for next week or the week after, or within the next few months, or the next project that you're going to get assigned in 6 months. So let's start getting you upskilled now, so you're ready to take that on. Or the gig economy. I can inventory skills and flip it. So I turn the model upside down and I say, who out there has the skills I'm looking for this particular project? I might only need them for 6 weeks, but let me pull from the organization. So instead of that vertical line of sight, marketing only deals with marketing and L&D only deals with marketing, I might actually pull people from all kinds of functions. So again, it creates this pool of talent and this opportunity that exists where you can look at talent strategically. And that's the good side. I mean, that's the tool side, that's the opportunity side. But I also want to just share, going back to what Marianne mentioned as well, there's the people side of the equation. And we're delivering a lot of content. That's on the tools, that's the background, that's kind of making things happen. But what people want and what we're really helping them with is making them more people oriented, especially on like a Zoom call like this. People are hybrid, people are working hybrid. We're focused more on remote management, remote leadership, EQ, relationship building. And how do you do that from the shoulders up, right? Some folks are not in person as much as they used to be. So how do you build those relationships? How do you get that leadership to exude the television screens that are in front of us here? And make those connections with the strategy and the skill. So I throw that out there because it is a mix. It's not just the tech, but there's the human side as well.
Absolutely. Mary, I suspect that you have a lot of thoughts on this.
I absolutely do. Sir, first of all, it is just so great to be here with this great stew of brilliant minds. I think I want to invite everybody over for a party here. What's so interesting.
I'm in.
Yeah, very cool. Now, you mentioned something interesting, Jerry, and again, don't look at the gray hair. That, would you like to go back in time and, be that 22-year-old who knows coding? And actually, I'm glad that I'm not. Here's why. Back in the 80s, which is the dark ages for some of you, I was in sales way before I got into training. And I was one of the first people in California to help sell cell phones. Now, you can Google it, okay? And you can put in chat if you're so brave. Venture to guess how much was the first cell phone. Forget about installation and getting a antenna in your car. Take a guess. How much was the very first cell phone?
How much did it cost?
Yeah.
Oh, it cost upwards to like $1,000 for a cell phone.
Get this.
For one that holds less than a USB drive right now.
Right. Well, I saw Andal mentioned about 500 US. You're not going to believe this, and I'm glad where most of us are sitting down. $3,500.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I, again, was just a child, but what was so interesting, we were selling them to attorneys, lawyers, and doctors. And guess what? They were our number one customers. And again, it was a crazy sale. But what was so interesting in that, as I reflect upon being that early adopter, I didn't have the foresight to know how big it was. I thought it was just going to be a very select market, but those people who saw the value and benefit jumped right in. And so what I like to do is take that experience that I had back in the 80s to know that you've got to just jump on in. And one other last example, because I started off in sales, we were selling in 1995, a little earlier, or a little bit later on, we were selling the first precursor of websites. And guess what? No one had a computer except for some folks. I didn't even have email at home. And yet we were selling these things for the web, which, by the way, I'd be the first person to admit, when I went onto a website, I didn't know what you were supposed to do when you got there. Okay. But yet we believed in the technology and we believed that this was the future of learning. So with that in mind, reducing the barriers, I liked how Joe and Jerry mentioned about that. That's where we have got to be the trailblazers and work as business partners with our C-suite to literally remind them about how many of them were, some were, but many of them were not brought up with the technology that we have today. Okay. I ventured 10 years ago when and again, in the learning development world, we didn't do very many online meetings, and they were very rough. And again, they weren't necessarily productive. But like we said, COVID changed everything as well. That was a tragic and horrific situation. It also was helped propel us to extreme learning, so that we would have to make sure that we took the bull by the horns and made sure that we forced ourselves to get in the thick of it. One last example I'll share is Chat GPT. And Shannon, I don't want to take away from your questions, but just about a month and a half ago, I kept seeing all this jibber jabber about Chat GPT, and I challenged myself. I said, I'm not going to be a slow adopter. I'm going to be one of the first people who decides, is this worthy or is it just a fly by night? And I'll tell you, I spent some hours with the system, and I'm a convert. Might be taking over the world, but I will tell you that as opposed to fearing it, I'm going to help my companies that I work with take advantage of that, so that we can use that technology and be open to trying new things.
Mm-hmm. It's easy to fall down that Chat GPT rabbit hole, isn't it? And I mean, I think we between all four of us who are big into learning tech, it was an easy sell for me. I did a few prompts in there. I was like, oh, look at this. Okay, this is fun. I wish that we use technology more to help enable the solutions that we need for our businesses to move forward. And when we bring the topic back to the future of skills and the future of work, then all of these technology things, yes, they have their special bucket to sit in. And the people have their special bucket to sit in, and the business has its special bucket. Well, actually, the business is the holder of the bucket. So when I speak about barriers, you've got CLOs, you've got training directors, you have training managers or L&D managers or L&D directors, whatever title you are giving yourselves nowadays. Yeah, you've got a group of people who are very excited about harnessing this information and the data sets that come with it. And maybe the business isn't as mature as it could be in order to take those sets of data and put use to them. So where I'm going here is, what can we do to help the businesses see, and not necessarily see the uses of technology, but what I'm talking about is the relationship between talent and business. So how do we strengthen that? Because that's going to be the future. That's not the future, that's the now. And it actually was the past. And that's how we're going to see success, is if we can strengthen those ties. So how can we go about doing that? And so I'll go, Jerry.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that sometimes the learning leaders and the business leaders speak two different languages.
Yes.
Right. We tend to be narrative people, right? We want to tell stories. We want to talk about an individual. This person over here took this learning experience and gained this skill and did this thing. And so we're very people focused. Nothing gets us more excited when we see somebody grow or learn or develop. My goodness, what a fun thing to be a part of, and to know that you had a hand in it. Your CFO does not think that way. Your CFO has a very, very different brain. And that brain gets excited, and dopamine gets released when things like good numbers go this way and bad numbers go this way, right? And so sometimes we just talk right past each other. We can either hope that the CFO and the finance people and the CEO are going to learn to appreciate the way we think, which is a really bad plan, by the way, or we can learn to speak their language. And we can learn, again, if you work inside of large corporations, things show up on dashboards, right? Things are very clear, they're very visible, you can see them immediately. There's a variety of ways of demonstrating those things. we have to learn to speak that language. We have to learn to, and again, in our company, we do a huge amount of consulting work around ROI, and we call it defend the spend. If you're going to learn to defend the spend, you have to speak in language that the C-suite will recognize. And that is the language of finance. It's the language of economics and business. And so those are skills that we need to learn. I don't think the CFO cares all that much about what technology that you may or may not be using. The CFO is going to care very much about how that technology is moving the ball. And they're going to say, show me. That's a skill we need to learn. And that's a large part of our consulting work is helping people define metrics and weigh them and figure out how to display them to tell that story numerically rather than narratively.
Sure, if I could pick up on that, because again, I agree. What part of our role at the strategic level, at the value that we bring to the table, is to help the C-suite, to help our business leaders see around corners. You want them, it's not the skills for today, it's the skills needed for 3 years or 5 years down the road. And from a CFO perspective, yes, I'm going to invest in this person. It's a salary. There's benefits. There's dollars attached to it. What's the difference between investing in this person versus someone else? What's that ROI look like? And again, they're not looking at individuals, but as a whole. Some of the things that we can help with, and some of these newer tools and some of these newer technologies, is you could see where the trends are going. You can actually look at skill sets. You can actually get data back and see what's trending up in terms of a desired or a hot skill. So for example, C++ programming is on its way down. Python is on its way up. 5 years ago, cloud was kind of level. Right now, cloud and internet as a service and platform as a service and SaaS, all of that is trending up. That's where people are going in those kind of models. And so we have to kind of look at continuously look at job profiles and dynamically build those job profiles and those skill sets in real time. Because if we're working from a job profile from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we're hiring people from what that looked like then. What we have to do is almost that job profile has to be predictable, it has to be dynamic, it has to look into the future and always change. So for each job posting that you're putting out there, it's almost adapting real time as to the type of skills you're looking for. And the last thing I'll note is that in a way, because the question is, how do you always hire someone who is constantly upskilling, reskilling, and so on? So one of the skills, one of the capabilities that you want to look for in someone is that learning agility gene or that learning agility ability. So how quickly can they adapt? Are they kind of one track and this is what they do? Or are they able to adapt? Do you see growth within that person's profile and background and experience? And that learning agility is really what we're looking for, because guess what? Things keep flexing. We keep pivoting left and right as we go forward. And ideally, that's the team member that you want working with you, regardless of where they sit in the organization. So
I'm going to add to that, if that's okay, Shannon.
Sure.
All right. Well, again, just because we're all lifelong learners, I'm taking some notes, great stuff. I'm going to copyright, see you around the corner. So that's awesome. What's so interesting is Jerry brought up a really great point, and that is look at the same information that your CEO, CFO, CRO are looking at. And I remember years ago when I started in the solar industry, I didn't know anything about solar. And my CEO knew that, but I knew learning and development. But when I had my first introductory conversations with my CEO, I said, okay, what are you looking at? What are the magazines? What are the books you're reading? What are the dashboards?
Yes.
What are the metrics that keep you up at night? And here's the challenge for everyone on this call. Don't be the department that they go to when they need help. On a contraire, is you need to be the person who is the trailblazer. Gone are the times where we're sitting back and waiting for intake of needs. No, we have to be the solution provider. We have to be the Sherpas, and we have to educate them on our new role. And that is the again, I'm sure 5 years from now, 5 minutes from now, our titles will probably change and might not even have learning and development and training in them. It might be transformation. It might be, projections, who knows? And so the idea is that I would challenge all of us on this call to make sure that we are embedded, not in silos, but we are embedded with our chief decision makers. We need to be at the table and we need to be at the forefront and challenge them to take advantage of technology to help make us our companies more resilient and more fluid and flexible.
Yes, that's a soapbox I can get on with you. Absolutely. We spend a lot of time as an industry, woe is meing. We don't have a seat at the table. We don't have a seat at the table. And you have people in some on one side saying, well, don't wait for that invitation, just grab the chair and sit. And you have other people at the other end who say, who needs a seat at the table? I'm doing what I do. I'm connecting business value. I don't need to have that seat at the table, right? I am producing results that align with what my business wants, right? So there's two parts to this, both of which though headed in the right direction, because we want to connect to the business in some way to help bring it forward. And it's interesting, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, is a variety of different reports, ATD, training industry, McKinsey, HBR, a variety of reports tell us that the CEO, their main concern right now, beyond having a creative and innovative workforce, is the reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling of their people, right? The number one priority. Now, flip that coin. When you talk to the learning and development industry as a whole, its number one priority is compliance. There's a disconnect. So now
That's not good.
That's not good. So now Yodas, what's our advice? How do we now reconcile that? How do we make that connection? How do we make that connection solid again?
I'll jump in.
That's the future.
Yeah, that's the future. And I think the key is you have to be learner centric, right? So if you focus on the person and you identify where their needs are, and one of the things we do an unlocking potential workshop, and it's not just a one size fits all, but we have 6 different conversations. So it could be around where is it work-life balance that's important to you? Is it skills development? Where are you in your career at this point in time? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to be in 5 years from now or 3 years from now? And by the way, it's okay if it's not at our company. Let's figure out a way to engage you while you are here and try to make an environment or create an environment in such a way that wants to keep you here and retain you and develop you. So I think part of that is to empower the learner, because personally, I do believe what's going to happen is the technology will catch up. It will have a skills profile. We'll understand proficiency levels. We'll have not only a skill rating, but also how effective are you at delivering against those skills, working in teams, working remotely, working on various projects. And maybe there's going to even be some technology that will put together the best team. So there might not even be a human selection component of it where there's this line of sight and say, look, you have a project, you have an outcome, type it in, and here's some suggestions of the best team and people that are available in the company at this moment in time, or for that matter, outside consultants that are available at this time, that can come together and have the higher success rate of making that project happen in a shortest period of time. So if we can empower the learner to own their skill sets, to own their profiles, to own what's important to them. Different people at different stages. Some people have families. Some people, they don't have the time to work late and weekends and invest the time. Yet maybe after the kids get out of the house or go to school or whatever, they do have that time or they do have that ability. So I think if we focus and go where the learner is and focus on that learner, the tech will follow in that, and that if we empower that learner, give them the paths and the opportunities to grow or develop, regardless of what path they follow. That's the secret. That's where we're going to end up, and that's going to help us in the future.
And I think that we would all agree that keeping learning human-centric, is critical to its success. Attaching relevancy, attaching how it's going to help them be smarter, better, faster, right? Because we all know that saying that nobody comes to work to fail. So how can we help them not fail? And I think that when we go back to my previous question, which was how do we connect the dots, where you have a L&D department, if you will, that whose priority focus is safety training, compliance training. Yet over here at the C-suite, they're really worried about, who's coming in the future and how are we going to be more creative, innovative, and collaborative.
Right.
And those two things are not aligning, but they're both important. So what advice would you have, to people who might be listening that are struggling with that exact paradigm?
Yeah, I would say you need a deep understanding of the business objectives of your firm. For the CLOs who work in publicly traded companies, are you reading the quarterly reports? Are you paying attention? Are you spending some time with people in the C-suite? Are you coming to understand them and then connect their needs to what you're doing? And we do a very popular consulting engagement, which is called needs analysis. And the needs analysis looks very much at the learner, like Joe was talking about, but it also connects those needs of the learner to the needs of the organization. And so we always talk about a healthy learning culture as sort of a three-legged stool, right? It's connected to the business outcomes, it's connected to the learner, and then it's connected to the business team. The learning team. So the learning team is healthy, the learners are healthy, and the business is healthy. And if you disconnect any one of those things, if the business is saying we have this massive priority right here, right now, and you're off putting all of your effort and time into safety training, into lockout tagout, that's a miss. That's a miss. You have to connect to business outcomes, and you have to understand what those business outcomes are. And then something we haven't talked about, you have to learn to market. Right, learning teams and most learning teams that we deal with hate it when we say this, but you have to learn to market. You have to learn to market to your learners. You have to think like marketers to your C-suite. You have to think like marketers sometimes in your own learning team, but you have to tell your own story. And you have to tell your story in a way that maintains that human element for the learners, and in a way that checks the boxes for the business side of things. You have to be constantly marketing, and most of us would rather. Engineers suffer from the same thing. I created this cool thing. How come nobody wants to buy it? Because you didn't market it, right? But it's, look at how cool it is. I know, but you didn't market it. And so when you launch learning, when you're reporting on learning, you're constantly communicating. You're constantly marketing your value, or you're taking away from your value.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, we could have lots of talk about that. I was part of the committee for the LPI that built the competency, or rather the capability, around marketing learning. And so that's a sweet spot. You just hit my heart. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And it is so important, and it would be easy for me to derail this conversation and talk strictly about marketing, but I'd like to come back to, first off, yes, communication. How well are we doing that between the people within the business and the business itself, right? Those conversations happening. But you said something really interesting, if you don't mind me backing this up, is you said a healthy learning team.
Mhm.
What does that look like? What
Um,
what does a healthy learning team look like?
Yeah, again, it's in our way of thinking, it's one of the essential three legs of the stool, and oftentimes it is ignored. CLOs are oftentimes paying attention to learners, and they're paying attention to the C-suite and CFOs, but they're not thinking about their own team right in front of them. Are those people valued, right? Are they given the opportunity to learn and grow? Are they given the tools that they need? Oftentimes the learning team says, yeah, there's all this great technology out there. Oh, we don't have any of it. I read
Right.
about it. I see it displayed, right? And so, from as a leader of a learning team, are you providing the learning opportunities? Are you providing the white space that your learning team needs just to think? Not to just produce all the time, but you're constantly pouring yourself into content. Where are you filling yourself back up? And where are you providing opportunities to see new tech, to play with it, to explore? Where's the sandbox in your organization? If it's all fluorescent lights and you're just pounding away 50 hours a week doing standard issue instructional design stuff, you're not going to retain people. The content is not going to be very good. And if they're using technology from, when Mary Ann was in high school, no, it's not gonna be great. And then don't be surprised by that. You
Right.
need a healthy learning team.
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
pick up on that. It's the classic, shoemaker shoes, right? Make sure
Cobbler's
you
children.
development plans for your team members. One of our leadership capabilities we have for the entire organization is thought leadership. So we actually promote that. So what are the ways? Make sure they're getting out there, making sure they're looking into the future, not just the past, as to what that might look like, and really developing those skills. I think we operate more as a COE. So I think part of a healthy learning team is that consultative nature. When you get business leaders contacting L&D, asking them for help to plan an offsite, asking them to help to build a team meeting, asking them to help with performance outcomes, that's ultimately, to me, the mark of success of a good consultative learning team, one that's adding value, is when the business is reaching out directly to you. Yes, through maybe the HR business partner or the C-suite or whatever, there might be bigger initiatives. But when you have business leaders, managers who attend your sessions, who participate and rub elbows with you, and now they're reaching back out to you saying, we like what you did here. Can you even take it a step further or expand it to the rest of the team or bring it out to the entire division? That to me, it shows healthiness within an L&D function, because it's business driven versus top down or L&D driven.
Absolutely. And that ties in with what Mary had said earlier, which is be the go-to, right? And it's not about us knocking on doors saying, what do you want from us now? Like Oliver, right? Give me more. It's how can we bring people to us, right? It's we want to pull. We want people to see the value, understand the value. We want to be real contributors in that space. We want to be able to help meet people halfway and not just be that, order taker. Do you want fries with that? Right. We want to be that consultative partner. So Mary, I'm really interested in your view here about that healthy L&D department. What does that look like?
Well, Shannon, that is a huge personal passion of mine. First of all, for everyone on the call, if you're currently not running your training team, whatever you want to call it, if you are not running it as a standalone business, having the mindset to be your own CEO, to make sure that you've got the metrics and you've got the return on investment conversation ready to go, and not even just ready to go, bring it up. You have got to be, again, the driving force. Again, I started at a little company called Verizon before it was even Verizon many years ago. And when I was, again, just a child, thank you, Jerry, I assumed that mom and dad, meaning the corporate, had it all taken care of. And it was comforting. It was wonderful. But then as I grew into the world and to the senior executive leadership, I realized, oh, I'm mom and dad. I have to have the answers, and I've got to be confident and competent at them. And so starting with a learning team that is healthy comes from educating your CFOs, your CEOs, etc., on the value and importance of training the trainers. Okay. We wouldn't allow a physician to do brain surgery without being trained. We wouldn't allow the person in NASA to launch that rocket without training. And what happens is so many times we have our instructional designers, we have our platform presenters who haven't had a lot of personal development, and that has got to be a priority. Another thing that I will add is make sure that as your people are being developed, you let go of some of the reins. One thing that just fires me up is making sure that people within my team are promoted and recognized, because that is really going to be something that helps keep a person from leaving. Now we know that, the average person, stays with the company now just a couple of years. Gone are the days where you're going to retire from that company. And we have to recognize that we have to constantly be in a mode of keeping our talent. And that comes from developing them, just like Jerry and Joe said, getting them the latest technology, challenging the mindset that they have, however, to make sure that they know that they are the leaders and that they will help us understand our learner expectations. And last but not least is, yes, the CEOs are, concerned with making sure that we got our compliance done, and again, upskilling and reskilling, but ultimately make sure you know what are the top KPIs for your direct leaders, so that you can be involved and engaged and be part of the solution with them, not another department, but that you are a team player that is a pivotal part of their success.
Right. And this is great because part of that healthy L&D team, and I'm so glad you said that, Jerry, it's so important where we give that, as Joe said, kind of that white space, for learning, and to keep our skills fresh, right? And have the business, learn about the business, learn about our own business. I find that the concentration within learning science is a little lagging. We could do better to lift ourselves up from a learning science perspective. And then, of course, what do we know about what's happening in the world around us today, and the technologies that are happening today, and that's always the fun bit for a lot of us. For a lot of us, the technologies is a fun bit. For another subset of learning and development, maybe not so much. They like their business the way that it is, and that's okay. Because I think it's important. And I think the important message for the people who may be watching and listening right now is every business is unique, and every business has its own unique set of needs. That being said, humans are still humans, and how we skill them and how we put learning in front of them, that doesn't really change. So how do you work within your business? That's an individual quest that perhaps everyone could take a hand in exploring. But now let's talk about a little bit of fun, right? Let's talk about a little bit of fun. Now, and it's funny that you talk about marketing, and Marianne, it's funny that you talk about sales. I'll give my age away here in a second. Is anyone remembering Zig Ziglar?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Zig Ziglar, who was a sales guru here in the United States, used to say, you can have the best product in the world. If you can't sell it, you've still got it. Okay. Now, when we apply that to the learning needs of our organization, we can create massive amounts of content. But if it doesn't connect to the need, if it creates disruption within the workplace, if people can't find it, then we've still got it. And it's not doing anyone any benefit. So I'm curious as to your thoughts now about how can we create learning content, be that through curation methods, community building methods, learning in the workflow, et cetera. How can we now ensure that we've got learning that's out there that is resonating, you know, where people are not letting it collect, you know, dust bunnies? How are we going to do that? So I'll start with you, Joe.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Love the marketing component of things. Big marketer. You know, to me, it goes back to your compliance question. So what's the answer? You do both and. So I look at compliance. I'm about to launch a compliance program next week, all 3,000 global employees. But we're going to get them into the LMS. We're going to get them trained into the program. It's an e-learning course. But just like you go into the store, if I get 3,000 people going to the store, I don't want to just go into the store, take the compliance training and leave. I want a point of sale opportunity. I want to advertise. I want to use that path that they're going in there to say, hey, look at this other stuff that's available to us. So you can partner, you can co-market in that opportunity. So to me, it's like you have built-in traffic through compliance training, and then it's an opportunity to kind of let them know that this other content does exist. We take approach that if you think about what's changed, everything now is in 60-minute, 90-minute chunks that we deliver for the most part, because a lot of it's virtual. It's no longer 2.5 days of classroom-based training. So we break things into pieces. We create titles, things like Zoom productivity tips or Outlook productivity tips. So things that people will say, what can I can attend this session and what am I going to get out of it? 5 secrets to, it's a very salesy marketing titles that will engage the learner that say, okay, this is good. In 60 minutes, I'm going to walk away with 5 tips or 3 secrets or new ways of doing something, or how to create a pivot table in Excel, because it's not how to learn Excel, it's how to create a pivot table or a VLOOKUP. Right. So it's very specific where people can see something, look at it and say, this is going to help me in that environment. So salesy oriented one sheets that go with the emails that go out. We email a newsletter goes out to every employee, hyperlinks where to register, brief program description. When they get to the page, the objectives are always there as to the key learning points. And we encourage people to register and log in. So it's a combination. So the marketing, the salesy component is baked in. Agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, what are your thoughts now? How are we going to? We've got these fun tools now in front of us. We've talked about chat GPT. We've talked about AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of these fun sorts of things that we can use. To Joe's point, is that we keep it small, you keep it succinct, you help them do their jobs better. We use these tools to help them do their jobs better. And so now, how do we get them in front of people?
Yeah, so if you think like a marketer, and if you've ever hired a marketing firm, the first thing they're going to ask you is to develop a persona. They're going to say, who's your client? Who ultimately is your customer? And you're going to spend a great deal of quasi-annoying time trying to describe to the marketing firm, this is who we want to reach. But the reality is sometimes we think we know learners, we think we know their profiles. We actually sometimes call them personas to connect specifically to. If we are dealing with people that are 30 and under in an IT company, that's going to be very different than we're dealing with a manufacturing company where the average age is 56. Those are two, and you can take AR and VR and cool technology into that 56-year-old average company, and they're going to try VR, they're going to get dizzy, and they're going to stop using it immediately. Is it cool technology? Yes. Did you pour your heart and soul into good learning science? Yes. Do you understand your learners? No, you don't. You didn't. You didn't bother to do that. And so, once we understand the learner, once we understand that persona, then we can market to that persona. So we actually draw out a picture of a person, and we list a whole bunch of characteristics of that person. The difficulty is you want to say, well, this learning is for everybody. No, it's not. This learning, typically you're applying it to a very specific persona. What is that persona? Are you going to capture everybody inside that persona? You're not. But it's really going to help you target what you do. And then the way that you deliver it, depending on the audience, it might be a game. It might be AR. It might be just in time. It might be we built true video games for people because that's what their learners are used to learning. We did a really cool project in the EU where we built an actual sort of Monopoly-like game that they could play because they were trying to raise their financial competency. You need to deliver in such a way that matches with where your learner is. Right, every time you say this, you think, I got to do all these things. Yeah, you do. It's hard. You really do, but you have to know how to market, and you have to understand personas, and you have to understand IT, and you have to, grasp the deep truths of learning science, and you have to do all of those things all together. This is a hard job.
And I like that you used, learner personas. I think it's important as part. A lot of times when I talk to L&D people and we talk about learner personas, they conflate them with marketing personas, and they're not the same. So I think it's
not the same.
I think it's important for us to clarify that the two are not the same. They're close. They're like kissing
the
cousins,
one can inform.
right?
The one informed. I think I've learned a great deal from going through the exercise of building learner personas. Of sort of marketing personas, but it has to be translated into the learning world. But some of those basic skills up from the marketing side of things are really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of transferable skills there.
Yep.
And so we talk about, so specifically for, for Joe here is when we talk about learner personas, okay, part of learner personas is understanding what the barrier is to learning, right? It's we need to understand their jobs better. We sometimes we create these learning paths, and that's well-intentioned, but it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? We hope something sticks because we don't really understand what people are doing and what barriers they see on a day-to-day basis that keeps them from being involved in their own professional growth and development. So now how can we bring in, AI, AR, VR, and all of these other sorts of technologies and embed them into the traditional learning path? That might be more helpful.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think this is where some of the technology can help us. So some of the employee experience platforms or some of the other platforms that exist out there, you can actually see who are your highest performers and what are they touching? What are they reading? What are they seeing? What additional training are they taking over and above the career path? So the career path is kind of skills focused, job focused, and so on. But might also find they're opting in. So there's the kind of required training that might be career path oriented, but there's also electives. So what are the electives that these folks are interested in? We offer, we have our kind of traditional career paths, but we also offer a variety of electives. And going back to the marketing component, we see what the demand is for those electives. I mean, in a way, the best feedback we have, and one of the advantages in the space of L&D is registrations and seats. And we can measure that. And then to actually do some level 1, level 2, level 3 measurement on the back end, and then use those results to then market further. So it's not just, hey, this is a great course, come take it. It's, look, people who attend this program can show an increase in skills, can show an increase in team engagement, can show an increase in whatever the product or the program is focused on. And then you use that in your marketing and your advertising. So to me, it's, yes, there's the career path, the individual development plan that's set out to help the person focus on their skills, but also by tapping into the electives or seeing what the electives that people are raising their hand for can help supplement that skill development along the way. Because again, you might have the best engineer in the world, but if they don't have any bedside manner or that ability to motivate or engage a team or retain, because I see some of the questions in the chat, to retain a team and engage a team and connect them with the purpose of the organization or the department, or develop them personally, because remember, some of their personal objectives might be to get promoted, or might be to become a CLO, or might be, so what can you do today for that newer employee to kind of put them on a path, maybe a career path that's not necessarily short-term, but a longer-term career path to help them understand that. So may not be managing people today, but they could certainly participate in hiring interviews, or they could learn to coach others, or they could mentor others. So they could start to develop those managerial skills, but not still in that role, because you can't promote everybody.
Right. And not everyone wants to be promoted.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So it's creating that alternative path, that to that question that we had earlier in the chat, is about creating that alternative path for people who want to just be the best engineer they can be.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Too.
And that's how you keep people.
Yeah.
That's how you keep people.
Yeah.
You know, by giving them those opportunities, Mary.
Yeah. And to add on to that, and again, I have a couple of random things that I wanted to share because again, I hopefully you see some value. Getting back to that, the marketing message, I literally just last night, and I will see if I can try to find the name of the article, and I'm pretty sure I saw it on LinkedIn. It was specifically talking about learning and development and how we need to be better marketers. And the idea is that marketing, again, needs to be a partner, and they're experts at crafting and creating a message that makes your mouth water. Okay. And guess what? We need to sell it. And the good news, I've been in sales, but we're all salespeople, and we've got to, again, sell our products and services, because it is not just enough to drag the horse to the water, right? We've got to make them thirsty. And so after I've completed my compliance training, great, you got that out, that safety issue all done. Why not have some, again, suggested part of your LMS, some suggested other content? Hey, it looks like you're interested in this, or based on your profile, you're interested in that, or what, again, have it a free flow Q&A of what else do you need? So that's number one. Number two is it comes down to not just the needs assessment or needs analysis of what the CEO and the other departments need. It also comes down to being learner centric, like we've talked about a bunch this morning or today. And that is getting with those top performers and find out what are they doing to elevate themselves to make sure that they are more relevant and impacting the business. Because you might, and actually I guarantee it, will learn from those people as to, wow, you are learning how to be a drone pilot, because you see that is the future of, again, roofing and solar and construction or disaster recovery. You will learn more from your learners. We learn from our brothers and our sisters so much more than we possibly learn from our CEOs. And that information, we have to be that bridge that helps talk to the C-suite about what is really going on in the field. One of my, I guess you could just say it, pet peeves is when the senior leadership makes decisions without really understanding the population they're talking about. And that is super, super important. So it comes down to, I loved how you used the word electives, reminds me of college, right? Or even maybe high school. The idea is that have the upon demand learning. I happen to be involved with a volunteering organization right now, and I'm going through many online learnings, just like the regular learner. And what is so fabulous is that it reminded me that, if you like this course and you rank this as a 4 out of 5, how about these courses? And Shannon, you bring up something so important. We believe that people come to our companies with all of the background that we hoped they got. And many moons ago in big corporations, you had leadership training, you had corrective counseling, and you had all these managerial skills. And frankly, from what I'm experiencing nowadays is that people are coming to these jobs and these roles with maybe the MBA, but they don't have the people skills. And they're not necessarily always raising their hand saying, hey, I need some help. And so that's why we need to be the catalyst, and we need to advertise and promote, because it pays to advertise, what offerings we have to help them. And that's going to help us with retention.
Yes. And we've got about 10 minutes left. And before we conclude, I would like to pop one more question into the center of this group and see what ripples out. Is there are, I'm sure, a number of larger organizations, people within larger organizations that perhaps have appropriate support, being people and money. But there, I'm sure, are a lot of smaller organizations where you're that one man team, one woman team, you know, and you've got to steal budget money from, you know, IT in order to get things done. So what advice would you give to that population of people who might be listening to us today? How can they work towards the future of learning, build future skills when we don't know exactly what the future holds for us, when we've got very limited resources? And I'll start with Jerry. Jerry, what piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, one of the wonderful things about the L&D community is that we find there's a great deal of willingness to share, and there's a number of forums in which to learn. And so, almost, I mean, we're not inventing things that are going to be, you know, our intellectual property. They're not going to be patented, right? We're sharing best practices. There are organizations. ATD, a number of them have been mentioned. You know, training industry. There's a bunch of them. There's all sorts of research that's already done for you. Wonderful opportunities. A big part of what we do is consulting work. That work is growing because complexity is growing. There are organizations, we do it, others do as well, where you can hire fractional learning experience designers or fractional creatives. We have a service where you can hire a fractional CLO if you want to. And again, as somebody who started a business with just my partner and I, we've grown, but back then we had a chief financial officer fractionally. We brought in an expert for just the amount of time that we needed because he knew many, many things that we didn't know. So there are lots of opportunities to find wonderful ways to learn and grow and be part of a community. And, you know, again, Joe mentioned the gig economy, right? You find somebody that you need somebody to do something for 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 months, could be. My goodness, there's all sorts of opportunities for that.
Right. Thank you. Absolutely. Joe?
Yeah, I'll pick it up. It's not so much the dollars that you're spending. To me, it's creating a L&D team that uses innovation. So it's more about being innovative and being creative. I always talk about, you know, kind of being a MacGyver. That's a very American TV centric term, but you know, you got a piece of Scotch tape, a rubber band, and a paper clip. How do you make a training program work with just what you have available? So I think there's lots of things you could do to be innovative. So one is leaders teach. We talked about us not always having to be the experts. One of the best ways you can engage the business into your training and to get the business on board is to get the leaders of those businesses to do a teaching. Now, again, do we expect them to teach the entire program? Yeah, that'd be great if they do, but usually kick it off. Kick off the leadership program, kick off a program, get them to share a story. Even if you capture them on video, it's a way of engaging them, engaging the business, and making it tie back to the skills that you're offering. Be creative in that you may not have the opportunity or the budget to hire a marketing team, but partner with a local school, go to the master's program, and the master's level folks at colleges offer an internship or a low paid internship, or for that matter, people are even just looking to do a project. They want that corporate experience. And I used to partner with NYU and with their OD department, their PhD candidates, and it was wonderful. And I almost every year I had the professor calling us when I was at my Citigroup days to kind of place people into this role. We'd give them a small project, and we learned from it every single time. So there's ways. I would just argue that it's not so much the dollars, but it's the innovation. Leverage a TED Talk, or leverage a book, or create a book club, or use executive book summaries. There's lots of different avenues you can take to introduce new ideas, new technologies, and get people engaged into your content. That doesn't necessarily mean a huge budget or a lot of dollar investment.
Great words of wisdom. Thank you for that, Mary.
Well, I got to say that many of us started off with humble beginnings, and the whole concept of a learning and development budget was a panacea. And so with that in mind, I feel for all of us out there who have, again, little to no budget, just because, again, perhaps you're in a growth industry or a growth company. And the idea is that it comes down to leveraging what resources you do have, not sitting back and crying about everything you need to be, again, creative and clever. And so one of the things that I would challenge you to do is deputize or appoint people who are the subject matter experts. Again, they've got the street credibility, and have them be engaged in the learning process. They say that children who don't like to eat vegetables will be more engaged and more willing to eat those vegetables if they are a part of the cooking and preparation of the meal, because they've touched that squishy tomato or that pepper or that bean. Now they're a little bit more desensitized to the taste, smell, texture, and they're more engaged. And I think that when we've done that with smaller and even larger budgets, it helps people feel a part of the recipe, a part of the meal. And when you've cooked, and of course, later on, I got to clean up from the meal, and you're part of it, you have a better and greater appreciation for the cook.
That's a great analogy. I might steal that. Thank you. That's wonderful. And I completely agree with everything that the three of you have stated. I'd also add it's knowing your business, isn't it? It's you don't know who's sitting out there whose side passion is graphic design, right? And I think sometimes we sit in our silos, as you said, Mary, kind of woe is me sort of thing. It's like, oh, I wish I had this help. Oh, I wish I had this help. And you do have this help if you would reach out, but reach out prior to needing help. And one of the things I used to do in one of my last corporate gigs was, here in the United States, American football, fantasy football is a big thing. And the IT department had a really large fantasy football cohort. And when it came draft day, who bought them pizza? I did. So that way, when I needed help, when my team needed help, or we needed guidance or support, they knew that we were there for them, they're there for us, right? And so it becomes this community of being willing to help each other and propel each other and make each other grow, right? And so I don't know if there are any other questions that perhaps we didn't get to, but I do realize that we are almost at the top of the hour. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Joe and Marianne and Jerry for being with us today. And if there are any last parting thoughts that you may want to share. Mary?
I'll just say that you are mom and dad. You are the leaders. Take that stance and embrace it, and know that you can make a huge and massive change in your company, and just make sure that you are viewed as the solution person, not just the order taker, not just the trainer, but the transformer of your company. And you can do it. And there's so many wonderful resources nowadays. And now you have about 200 new friends. So best wishes.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll just say, yeah, you got to focus on today. It's the both and strategy. So focus on the compliance training, focus on the stuff you have to get out the door and meet the needs of the business and what they're asking for in the moment. But also, as a part of your role is to also look to the future. Look 2 years out. I try to anticipate what the future might look like 2 years from now, what skills might be needed, and create that kind of an offering or that kind of momentum in where your strategy is going. That way, you're always kind of forward thinking. That's where I'll leave it. Jerry?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, what a wonderful opportunity to change people's lives. I mean, all of the teachers and modelers that we've had in our lives, all of us, and the impact that they've had. So what a wonderful business to be in, right? To help people learn, grow, develop, change, upskill, reskill. My goodness. And I guess my final thought would be, I would encourage you, when you see interesting things, dive in head first. And the technology, don't fear it. The business metrics, don't fear them. There's no reason to be afraid. Dive in head first.
Absolutely. There's support out there within your businesses if you reach out and ask for it. Absolutely. So thank you for all of this. And as those of you out there watching, you see our names there on our little Zoom windows. And I'm sure any one of us would be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn if you wanted to do so, as well as to ask any follow-up questions. So on that note, I'll say thank you everyone for listening and participating. Jerry, Joe, Mary, thank you so much for your time this morning. Mary, very early for you, so double thank you. I'm in Chicago, so I feel your pain about the weather. It's very, very cold out there. And I will flip this over back to to our hosts for today.
Thank you, Shannon. That was wonderful. Thank you to each one of you. We've had a really amazing time. I wish we can extend more and more, but anyhow, we have to move on. So we will catch up again definitely next time, and hopefully everyone of the participants will join again. So to those participants who could not have their questions answered, you can definitely join our LinkedIn group. We would love to have you there, and you can connect with our speakers there as well and the other participants to discuss more about the session. I request everyone to check out our certifications as well. We'll be very happy to guide you through this part if you are interested. We have shared the link on the chat box, so please have a look. Also, a kind reminder that we do have a feedback form. So we are sharing the feedback form as well.
Please have a look at the feedback form,
and you can spare a few time to just fill out the feedback form for the session, and we'll be really happy to have your suggestions, your recommendations, and things. So yes, we will be having another webinar next month. So I hope that everyone stay connected with us until then. And to the speakers, thank you so much again for accepting our invitation. It has been an honor connecting with you, and definitely we'll stay in touch. And yes, hopefully we'll see you on our next panel discussion again. So yes, have a wonderful day, everyone. And to all the participants as well, please take care, and thank you so much for joining again.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
If you still have questions, put that on the feedback form. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, right, guys and gals?
Yes, definitely.
Thanks, Atulo.
Thank you, Mary. It's been a pleasure.
Right back at you. Jerry, Joe, and Shannon, that was a blast. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, thank you to all. I hope you have a great rest, Mary.
I'm off to another meeting, so we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Okay, please take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.